Dana looked at herself in the mirror by the door. She sighed. That's how I'm going to live with it. Grisha, her boss, called her and asked her to meet him in the city in a cafe. She knew what he wanted, but she didn't know how he would react to what she would tell him. She took the large bag she usually carried with her. It might not have been all that stylish, but it had everything a mother of 3 needed. Eating the keys, she looked at her reflection again. I really am an idiot, she said aloud and slowly closed the door behind her. As she drove to meet Grisha, her thoughts returned to that party in the pulpit. She was well aware that she wasn't going anywhere without Sasha, but almost at the last minute he had been called away on an important experiment, and he had persuaded her to go without him. Darling, you're already dressed. The kids are at the babysitter's, and you certainly don't want to stay here while I work. Besides, the party will be full of your colleagues, and I'd feel more comfortable working and not be distracted by the thought of you being bored alone. So she went, and really had a good time. She went around and enjoyed the food, the conversation, and the drinks. Perhaps she enjoyed the drinks too much. She shook her head. She wasn't going to blame anyone or anything but herself. She did drink enough to relax. Quite a lot, in fact, but no amount of drinking justified her behavior. She went out the back door to get some fresh air to clear her head. The light buzzing was pleasant, but she knew that now she would have to ask someone to escort her home. She took a deep breath and flinched nervously when someone spoke. Jaina, what are you doing here alone and unsupervised? Grisha, what are you? Are you trying to give me a heart attack? She laughed and walked over to him. He's definitely good with himself. Dana thought. Tall, blonde, handsome. He was such a contrast to Sasha, who was stocky and dark-haired. Not that Sasha wasn't as handsome as Grisha, but Grisha had a charm that made women melt. Fictions, even she was guilty of looking at him at work, and even more so here. But it was a harmless attraction on her part. He never went beyond light flirting and nothing more. You're cold. He sounded confident. Grisha took off his sports jacket and threw it over her shoulders. Dana really felt good. She was wearing a black sleeveless dress that left her shoulders open. It felt good inside, but a slight chill was felt in the air. Thank you. No problem. He smiled. That's what friends are for. Without giving her a chance to speak, he continued. Seriously, what are you doing here? And where is Sasha? You always have him with you. She sighed sadly. Really busy, and I just wanted a little break from all this smoke. I don't understand how people can breathe in there. I see, but it's getting pretty chilly in here. How about, he laughed and bowed, that I escort my lady down the corridor and show her the new office. We'll stay away from the smoke and the cold at the same time. Well, Grisha, this is so unexpected. She laughed back. You want to show me your diplomas? So I saw them. And will it help seduce you? He teased. Such a joke. She reproved a smile. I'm sorry, and I'll behave myself. He defiantly offered her his hand. They walked along the soft carpet of the corridor until he stopped and unlocked the door. was already head of the department. That's something new. Grisha, congratulations. When did this happen? Just a few days ago. I just had time to move everything out of my old office and hook it up here. And luckily, everything's working just fine. The office really was beautiful. The dark furniture was accentuated by the light wood paneling and the bright curtains being draped at the moment. It really is a beautiful study, she commented and absently took his jacket off his shoulders and hung it on the back of his chair. Yes, it is beautiful, he remarked softly. His hands touched gently, her shoulders stopping there. But not as beautiful as you. She couldn't even tell herself how it began. It seemed only that they were standing in his office. His hands touched her shoulder lightly. The next moments, they were in an embrace. He was kissing her wildly, placing her hands on his shoulders. She sort of pushed him away once, another a third. Each thrust was weaker than the last. Oh God. Dana, I wanted you for so long. Grisha exhaled, pulling her to him. The part of Dana's brain that screamed that she was making a mistake fell silent under the suffocating desire that overpowered her. Then she was fully immersed in what was going on there with that handsome man. It was an amazing intimacy. But when they were done, she was still naked, and he pulled out his phone from somewhere and captured her like this. But from the flash, his sanity suddenly returned. Terrified of what she had done, she threw on her dress, slipped her underwear into her purse, and quickly sprinted out of the office and out. Dinah arrived home, dived into the shower as if the hot water could somehow wash away the incredible stupidity she had just committed. When Sasha finally got home, she pretended to be asleep. He curled up on the bed and she snuggled up against him. Trying to lie still so as not to disturb him, she finally drifted into an anxious sleep. The next day was no better. After everyone had gone to work and school, she sat down at the kitchen table and began to think. Not only had she betrayed Sasha, but she had done it without hesitation. 15 years of loyalty had gone down the drain in one fell swoop. Well, it had happened. She felt terrible, but in no way was she going to act like what had happened might happen again one day. Dinah had heard that supposedly the first affair can be the hardest. However, this would certainly be her last. Damn it. Dinah, she said to herself out loud. But it was so good. A few days passed, and she began to calm down a little. She couldn't decide whether she should confess to Sasha. She knew it would hurt him terribly, perhaps unforgivably. At the same time, the honesty they had always shown each other demanded a confession. She made up her mind and thought it over. There was no way she could come to a decision. Perhaps by Saturday night, which they always tried to spend together, it would be clear how to behave. Then on Friday, the phone rang. Hello, hi Dana. We need to talk. Gregory, I'm not sure that's necessary. I don't really think so. His voice was full of determination. You need to hear what I have to tell you. Okay, at the cafe at 1 o'clock. It'll be all right. Don't be late. He hung up abruptly. An unstarted drive there took forever. But on the way, Anna mulled over and discarded a dozen different scenarios in conversation. The one thing she was sure of was that there would be no affair. What had happened, she couldn't change, but it wouldn't happen again. She entered the cafe. Grisha was already sitting there. "Hello," silently Dinah said, sitting down. "What?" he replied. "So, Dinah, no kisses for your lover." "For God's sake, don't even joke about it," she whispered. "Somebody might hear you." He looked at her in surprise. "After that night, that's all you can say?" It was magical. It meant something special to me. Dinah took a deep breath and looked sternly at Grisha. "The only thing it meant was that you got yours. You wanted me for a long time. I know. What I don't understand is why. You have Rita, a terrific wife. Your daughter's not even a year old yet." He grinned and shrugged. "It makes it even nicer to know that the faithful wife was with me. I like to get all the things I can't have, or at least the things no one thinks I can have." God, Grisha, I can't believe you're so hard. Believe you're so heartless about all this. Ina marveled. "Well, that's even easier." She looked him straight in the eye. "I'm telling you that I made a terrible mistake, and it will never happen again. I hope you enjoyed getting me, because that's it, never again." "Oh, I don't think so." Gregory laughed heartily and threw the picture on the table. Anna gasped when she saw the pictures. "Look at that," Grisha laughed. "What a wonderful picture. You bastard," Dinah hissed. "It's true," he smirked. "And you can't talk to me like that. If you don't want this to get out, you'll have to listen to me." But Dinah knew at once what she was in for. She picked up the picture. "Oh, by the way, you can keep it. Add a few copies if you're interested." Well, Dina sat in silence. Grisha satisfied and nodded. "Now that the trouble is over, let's get down to business. You will entertain me whenever I want." Dinah looked up, shaking her head. Well, we've already worked it out. I'm sure you'll like it. In fact, the vacations would be a good start too. I don't care what you tell your husband. As long as I have you there by 7 p.m., just to show you that I'm not a bad guy. I'll even give you some underwear I want you to wear. In the meantime, I feel like I'm in a good mood right now, so let's go to my place now. No, silently said Dinah. What? I said no. Anna looked at him. I may have made a mistake that I'll probably never be able to fix, but I'm not stupid. If I go along with it, I'll find myself even deeper in your grasp. Sooner or later, you'll make me do something that will give the whole story away anyway. He calmed down and leaned back in his chair. What are you going to do? Lou left? Tell your high-minded, honest husband what you are. Yes. One word from Dana completely stunned Grisha. You wouldn't dare, said he. I know Sasha. He'll throw you right out on the street. He might, Dinah agreed. And if he does, I can't blame him for anything. I could lose everything. My husband, my children, everything I have. But I have to risk it. I had no choice. Gregory sat there with his mouth open. No, she just wouldn't dare. The whole thing was some kind of bluff. But what if she did? Gregory? He looked up. He was struck by the calm, determined expression on his face. In case you're worried about your role in this case, so worry. I'm afraid your Jewish mother will be upset by this picture. He muttered in panic. Anna looked at him calmly, though everything inside was vibrating. He was digging himself a hole. Yes, my Jewish mother will be very upset. But my Russian dad will be even more upset. Not so much for the picture as for my mom's upset, but above all, he will be very upset with you. Grisha. Her dad was the vice rector of the Polytechnic and had a close relationship with the management of the university where both Dinah and Grisha worked. Dinah called for the waiters and asked where to call. This photo is evidence. I don't envy you. I cheated on my husband and will regret it for the rest of my life. Even if Sasha finds a way to forgive me, it will be very hard for me to forgive myself for hurting him and my family. But you'll regret it even more. Auntie, I'm coming to you right away. It's very serious. An hour later, Christina called Sasha from her father's office, asked to come out to meet her at the entrance of her office. Sasha, it is very important. Sasha got worried. What happened? Why suddenly? Anna urgently called him to the entrance hall. Sasha, we need to talk, but before I say anything else, believe me when I say that I love you, that you are the most important person in my life. That conventionally, the serious voice scared him off a little, something he rarely heard from his wife. What is it? Dina, what do you want to tell me? There was clearly an anxiousness in his voice. You. Dinah trembled and finally continued. I cheated on you with Grisha. You what? Sasha asked, not believing what he had heard. Of course, he said to Dinah would not cheat, because they often talked about couples who have burned, walking around saying that they would never do it to each other. What? Just a week ago, you weren't at the party. He somehow seduced me. I don't know how it suddenly happened. How could you? The hotness and anger were now evident in Sasha's voice. Do you want to tell me that we're breaking up? No, Sasha. I love you, but I had to tell you what happened. So tell me. Dinah. There was obvious bitterness in her voice. I don't know how it happened. He just seduced me and I let him. Please believe me. I feel terrible. Grisha tried to blackmail me today and she laid out the story of what had just happened. Sasha found it hard to believe. First, that Dina had obviously cheated on him so easily, and even more, so that Grisha, the man he knew, would do something like that to him and to Dinah. Sasha got up from the bench. I don't know why himself, and suddenly realized that Dina was still sitting there and tears were streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Yes, of course you didn't mean to. Go home. Maybe we'll talk when I get there. I get there. At these words, he left without even looking back at Dina. The next few hours passed like a fog. Sasha and someone called from the university, and said that Grisha had already been fired and left in an unknown direction. That's in some ways. This was some relief, but in other ways, it only added to the pain that was felt for Dana's betrayal. That was, it may not have been intentional, but still she could have stopped it. She could have fought it, but she didn't. Sasha still wasn't sure what he was going to do, but he knew he had to face her. There wasn't really any place he wanted to go or where he needed to be, so Sasha just wandered around aimlessly until he decided to talk. It was hard and hopeless. Dinah had arranged for the kids to spend the night with friends, so there was no need to worry about them coming in or hearing the conversation. But that was probably the only good thing. I don't know what Sasha expected to hear, or for that matter, wanted to hear, but whatever it was, it didn't inspire optimism. Dina kept saying how sorry she was, how much she loved her husband, but she couldn't explain why that was. Sasha tried to ask her what he had done to cause her to cheat, but she essentially had nothing to say. Stina assured her that she would never do anything like that again, but how could she be trusted? It became clear that nothing was going to be resolved tonight. Sasha told Dinah that he needed time to think, to decide whether they're getting a divorce or could work things out, and she should give it time. She agreed to visit her sister for a few days, leaving Sasha at home to think about her future. After a week, Sasha did decide to talk to Dinah, and they even reconciled, but it was hard for them to live as before. She chastised herself for cheating, and he was angry at himself for not being able to leave, but he couldn't forgive either.